Greetings everyone, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, here to bring... Sorry about that, my throat's a little dry. Anyway, I'm here to bring you another episode review from Season 5 of The Loud House. Today's episode is titled, Silence of the Luans. First we'll discuss the plot, and then my thoughts and critiques with my final score. So, let's get right into... Sorry about that. The episode begins with Lincoln guarding the basement door and telling the audience he and his family have locked Luan in a holding cell because it's April Fool's Day, the one day where she goes insane with pranks. Even though she claims she's done with pranking for good, no one is going to let her out of the cell. Suddenly, a series of pranks go off in the house, and no one knows who's responsible for them. They assume it must be Luan, but how could that be if she's locked in the basement? Lincoln starts to believe maybe Luan isn't the one behind the pranks, but the rest of the family isn't convinced. Lincoln decides to free Luan and use her expertise to stop the real prankster before a grand finale happens. The kids begin setting off several pranks that were meant to go off for the family, who all escaped in Vanzilla, and they find out the real perpetrator is Lily, who was disguised as their dog Charles. She sets off her grand finale with Vanzilla going around and around in an endless loop at the Burpin' Burger. Luan and Lincoln chase Lily to the attic in the attempt to stop her grand finale. As Lincoln fights her off, Luan short-circuits the console controlling the car, bringing Vanzilla to a stop. At the end of the day, the parents ground Lily for the next few years, and because of how impressed she was seeing her little sister pull off all those pranks, Luan declares she's coming out of retirement and will resume her pranking ways, much to her father's horror. Well, that concludes the plot of the episode, so now we come to my thoughts and critiques. I guess I might as well start off by saying that, as far as I'm concerned, this episode, as well as the previous April Fool's Day episodes, are officially non-canon, at least in my book. Considering how many episodes we've had centered on this holiday, and the number of flashbacks and past references contained within, I just don't believe it's possible to credit any of these episodes as part of the main Loud House timeline. Although Lincoln and Luan technically poke a hole in my non-canon theory. Lincoln mentions how locking up Luan the day before April Fool's Day was proven to be unsuccessful, seen in the April Fool's Rules episode in Season 1, and how Luan says she gave up her pranking ways, seen in Fool Me Twice in Season 3. However, if you think about how The Great Mustarding from 3 years ago features characters like Lisa, who should have looked more like a 2-year-old in the flashback, not appearing any different now than they did in the past, and how Luan can move her entire house down the Kalamazoo River on top of other pranks without anyone ever finding out, especially the obvious egg setup in the bathroom, you're left totally and utterly confused as to how any of this can happen. Cartoon logic, perhaps, but in an effort to make things infinitely easier, it's better to just assume these particular holiday episodes take place in their own universe and not even try to overthink what happens in them. Of course, there are some things to this episode you do have to ponder when it comes to how the story was laid out and how the plot was advanced, but first, let's talk about some of the good things of the episode. I really liked Luan's voice changing from normal to deep and foreboding. Hats off to Christina Puccelli for top-notch voice acting. I really appreciated the Saving Private Ryan reference when Lincoln was witnessing his family getting pranked in slow motion. Considering surviving April Fool's Day in the Loud House is like a war in and of itself, this reference fits all too well. I also liked how Lincoln was the only one willing to believe Luan wasn't the one behind all the pranks. He points out how Luan hasn't used fresh whipped cream for pranks in a long time, and usually goes for the spoiled stuff. It seems he knows Luan's style better than anyone, and in a shocking twist, so does Lily, the mastermind behind everything. Before I go any further, I have to confess I did spoil myself by watching the preview clips before the official airing, and when it was revealed Lily was responsible for all the pranks, it seemed completely out of the blue, and I was a little put down by the revelation, at least initially. I thought, there's no way a 2-year-old could be behind everything that happened. There has to be more to it than this. That's when I came up with a possible scenario on what the real revelation could have been, which I will discuss a little later in the video, but even so, it's true Lily was the prankster all along. Seeing how cunning and tactical she was in the episode Any Given Sunday, it goes to show you can never underestimate what a character is capable of doing, no matter how small. I don't know why Lily would want Luan to return to her old ways memories when she herself was once on the receiving end of Luan's pranks, but maybe she finds it funny when the rest of her family gets pranked. She's never seen getting pranked to the extent everyone else has experienced, so I guess she gets a prank-free pass because of her age? I don't know for sure, but this little mastermind did all of this just to bring Luan out of retirement, perhaps only for her own entertainment. Even Luan commends Lily for how elaborate her scheming was, and it really shows during their little bonding moment. As we found out during the climax, Lily switched places with the family dog Charles, who apparently drinks from juice boxes like it's no big deal, according to Lincoln. I had trouble figuring out how Lily and Charles could have switched places if Lily's facial expressions were changing before leaving in Vanzilla, and how Lily's face wasn't moving at all when it turned out it was just Charles with a Lily mask. Lily isn't seen with the rest of the family when they're in the basement, but Charles is. Was that just Lily dressed up as Charles? Was it the real Charles? If neither of them were in the basement, we could easily assume Lily and Charles were switching places and getting into costumes, so to speak. So that's one plot hole that's never officially addressed. The size of Charles changes from his regular height to the obvious Lily height when it's just Lincoln and Luan in the house, and how Charles is suddenly Lily's height when Lily is in the car. Let's also not forget the realistic dog bark that could be heard in the bathroom. Then there's the dirty diaper moment. Isn't Lily supposed to be in preschool and no longer using diapers? You can draw your own conclusions on those little moments because, well, I got nothing. The last thing I want to talk about is how the episode could have made those pre-air date spoilers much more believable. If it had been revealed Lily and Luan had been planning for April Fool's Day long before Luan was locked in the basement, having Lily be the one to set off Luan's intended series of pranks would have made the episode somewhat like Fool's Paradise. At least that could explain how Luan's pranks were set in motion without her being seen, thanks to the assistance of someone the family wasn't expecting. That way, Luan's actions and behavior could have all been an act and everyone would have fallen for it hook, line, and sinker. It may have been a missed opportunity, but that's what Nickelodeon gets for spoiling the ending. It's a shame, really. Overall, this episode was a step up from the April Fool's Day episodes from seasons 1 and 3, but not better than Fool's Paradise in season 2. Lily proved you can't trust the quiet ones like her, and she made that crystal clear after today. No matter how much you want to think how unrealistic it is for her to set up all these pranks, it goes to show Luan has been an influence on her, and there very well may be a new full-time prankster when Luan leaves the Loud House when she gets older. One thing the writers really missed out on was trying to incorporate Lori into the conflict, and then have it turn out she was the one behind the pranking instead of Lily. Everyone would have assumed she was at Fairway, lucky her, and then we find out why she was pulling pranks on her family when she used to hate getting pranked herself. You can let your imaginations decide on how Lori could have been involved. I have a few ideas myself, but that's neither here nor there. In spite of the plot holes that come with these kinds of episodes, and when or if you decide to view this as a non-canon episode to the series, this was one April Fool's Day adventure that didn't put Luan in a bad light. With that said, I give Silence of the Luans an 8.2 out of 10. Well, folks, that concludes my review of Silence of the Luans. Now that we... Okay, you know what? I need to wrap this review up. I need some juice for my throat. So, as far as this episode goes, what did you guys think of it? Love it? Hate it? Something you would add? Change? Keep it as it is? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to this channel for the latest Loud House content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, signing off. Peace out, home slices.